Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Yesterday, a parliamentary committee on culture and media adopted, with amendments, a draft of a new law on radio and television broadcasting which was authored by Law and Justice deputies. The draft provides new rules for granting concessions to media with foreign capital. The draft sparked a heated debate about the limits on freedom of speech. The representative of the proponents for the amendment to the media law, MP Marek Suski, speaking on today's Good Morning Poland programme, justified the need to change the regulations on the access of foreign capital to the Polish media market. A certain company, an American corporation, established a company somewhere at Amsterdam Airport and claims that it is now European capital. Hence the regulations had to be tightened. The deputy explained that the existing regulations needed to be corrected due to the ease with which they can be bypassed in their current form. This is an old law. There is a provision in Polish media law that foreign capital from outside the European Union may have a maximum of 49% stake in media. The majority of opposition MPs are critical of the amendment. Opposing voices also come from the United Right camp. Jarosław Gowin's Agreement Party is protesting against the current form of the regulations. The amendments tabled by the Law and Justice Coalition partner, which would allow TVN, belonging to the American Discovery conglomerate, to apply for a licence, were rejected. Therefore, we will propose that these amendments, once again, but as a minority request, and if they are not approved by our coalition partners, the Agreement Party will not support the Broadcasting Act. On the other hand, the amendment proposed by Kukiz 15, which made it impossible for subsidiaries of the state treasury to take over the shares sold by the owners of private media, was adopted. However, this amendment may be lost in the parliamentary vote due to lack of support from Gowin's deputies. The final decision on support for the project has not yet been made by the Confederation. First of all, we are looking at the legislative process. It has only just begun. On the 11th of August it will be continued in the second and third reading. If we know the final shape of the Act, then, as a Confederation, we will make some decisions. According to experts, the attitude of Jarosław Gowin's party to the draft may also result from other reasons. He wants to maintain good relations with American partners and show himself as a more enlightened side of the United Right, one able to defend American interests in Poland. There are also voices saying that the project may eventually be dropped. This is because the amendment threatens the interests of an American media conglomerate, and the proposal may only be one element in the reaction to the conclusion of the agreement on the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, reached between the United States and Germany, which is unfavourable to both Poland and Ukraine. The government, it seems to me, wants to show that if you are an ally, it doesn't mean that you are one at all costs and at all times. But there are also some costs involved in a lack of consultation on political decisions. Voting in the same on the amendment to the Broadcasting Act will probably take place on the 11th of August. The international community is observing the current political crisis in Tunisia with great concern. Among other things, the parliament has been suspended and curfews have had to be extended. The European Union and the United States have called on President Kais Saied immediately to restore institutional stability and uphold democratic principles. For 2 days, the streets of Tunisian cities have been relatively calm, but this does not mean that the residents reacted calmly to recent events. On Sunday, there were demonstrations around the Parliament building by opponents of President Kais Saied, who was accused of a coup d'etat. However, representatives of the suspended groups unanimously called on their supporters for restraint and dialogue. I have lived in this country for many years and have seen a lot. However, I have never seen a government like the one we have witnessed in the last 10 years. I have seen poverty, bad conditions, but never experienced anything like this before. Oppositionists and trade unions call on the incumbent president to present a plan to overcome the crisis and declare his readiness to talk. At the same time, they warn him against an unjustified extension of the state of emergency, which was introduced for a month. However, there are also voices of satisfaction with the current turn of events. I fully support the President's decision. If such steps had been taken from the beginning, we would not have been facing such problems today. We were silent for 10 years. During this period, we lived on the verge of poverty. People are sick and have nothing to treat themselves with. The international community is monitoring the developments in Tunisia closely. The French government called on both sides of the dispute to de-escalate tensions. In turn, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia issued a statement in which it expressed its support for all actions guaranteeing the security and stability of Tunisia. Representatives of the European Union and the United States of America also commented on this matter. The European Union supports respect for the rule of law, democracy and fundamental human rights. The stability of a country and the proper functioning of its institutions are the key to strengthening its democracy. We call for institutional stability to be restored.
We are in touch at a senior level from both the White House and the State Department with Tunisian leaders to learn more about the situation, urge calm, and support Tunisian efforts to move forward in line with democratic principles.
The current political crisis in Tunisia is the most serious since 2011, when during the so-called Arab Spring, the country's inhabitants overthrew its autocratic authorities and introduced a democratic system. However, it did not bring the expected economic prosperity. Instead, Tunisia has struggled with relentless political paralysis, corruption and rising unemployment, which have led to increased civil unrest. A huge and potentially environmentally disastrous cloud of smoke has reached Poland after yesterday's explosion at a chemical plant in Leverkusen in Germany. In the morning, the cloud reached the northwestern part of the country before moving towards the Baltic Sea.
Yesterday morning, a serious explosion occurred at the Leverkusen Industrial Park in Germany. 2 people died and over 30 were injured. German authorities classified the incident as extreme risk. Residents received instructions to remain indoors, close all windows, and disengage all ventilation systems. Firefighters managed to put out the blaze at around noon, and the fire service reported that initial tests did not show risks of any life-threatening air contamination. This despite the fact that fuel tanks were affected, which could imply a possible dispersion of aromatic hydrocarbons. This morning, the cloud caught the northwestern corner of Poland, with Szczecin included. It later veered northeast and currently hangs somewhere above the Baltic Sea.
The Museum of the Warsaw Uprising has obtained about 2,000 previously unpublished aerial photographs of Warsaw taken by the Germans during World War II. From today, the museum will be exhibiting the entire collection.
During World War II, the Germans took more than 1,200,000 aerial photographs of the areas through which the front was passing. After the war, the photographs found their way to American and British archives. Today, thanks to the work of the Warsaw Museum, on the website www.korzeniemiasta.pl, we can see nearly 2,000 hitherto unpublished German photos. These pictures are really quite numerous, but they aren't well catalogued, so we're looking for them, sort of photo by photo. And a second thing that's also quite important is that we'll be expanding on information. The goal is simple: to encourage everyone to learn about the initiative and, together with the employees of the Warsaw Uprising Museum, help decipher the stories contained within the photographs. The museum wants to obtain information not only from experts and historians, but also from ordinary people. We've decided to turn to the residents of Warsaw, people who came here, who visited, who've heard of Warsaw, to reach into their memories, to places that surrounded them, and try to give us some hints. To check these places. How could they have looked during the occupation? Aerial photos can be a source of a lot of information. At a glance, the layout of streets and buildings is clear. You can see vehicle routes and barricades set up during the uprising. Each group of elements is a separate layer of the city's history from AD 44, but also an opportunity to understand how pre-war Warsaw looked and functioned. We think that in the future, this map will be able to show these kinds of functionalities, these stories, in a more accessible way. Photographs taken by German soldiers allowed, among other things, for the creation of detailed maps and then for planning of military operations.
Jewellery worth up to €3 million was stolen by a thief who, gun in hand, attacked the Chaumet jewellery store near the Champs-Élysées, right in the heart of Paris. The thief got away on his electric scooter. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.